and welcome to this episode of Maga Woman TV. Now, I've got a dear friend of mine, Keri Norley, who's going to have a chat to us today. Now, I'll just give you a little bit of a background on Keri. Keri's kind of a master of many, many things. She's a coach. She's done aromatherapy. She's a shaman healer. She's a numerologist. She's a feng shui consultant. You know it. Keri's basically done it in her life. She's done so much. When you hear Keri, you'll see that she's not a native Australian. She did live in Australia for many, many years, which is when I met her, probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And Keri is the master of manifesting, but behind the scenes, Keri also struggled. She struggled with her weight, she struggled with her health, her relationships. And whilst everything on the outside looked great, it wasn't always that good on the inside. And then in 2016, Keri decided that she was going to pack her complete family up and just travel around the world for a few months. And she actually had no idea how she was going to do this, but she manifested it all. Her and her husband packed everything into 2 backpacks, packed up their house, sold what they needed to, put everything into storage, and just started to travel. And actually, when Keri told me she was going to do this, I knew she wouldn't come back. I don't know how, but I knew she wouldn't come back. And she didn't. When she got to the States, back to the States where she came from, after a couple of months, she made the decision that her and her family were going to stay over there in the nice warm place of Denver, where it's just been snowing, she just told me, even though it's coming into springtime. But the biggest thing that happened, and I've seen a massive change in Keri, is then Keri, she actually had the biggest love affair of her life while she's over in Denver. She fell in love. And this love affair has actually changed her life, her health, her relationship with her husband, her relationship with her children, her relationship with her extended family, her mother. It has changed everything. And that's what I want to talk to Keri about today, because this has been an unbelievable love affair that Keri's actually undertaken here. And people would think, oh, what's going on here? So, Keri, I want you to tell us who you fell in love with, what it has meant to you to actually have this love affair. And then I want you to share with us as we go through is how we can have this type of love affair as well. So welcome, Keri.
Thank you, Angela. That was a beautiful introduction. Thank you. And so spot on. Yes, very true. So the love affair for me has been falling in love with myself. And like Angela said, it has changed my life. And I mean, Angela and I have had many a conversation around the shithouseness that life had moments of. And I'm not going to say, even when we got on just before we got on the call, it's not to say that everything is always still perfect in that, like, there's never any problems kind of a way. It's just that dealing with them is so much easier now. And falling in love with yourself, for me, falling in love with myself has meant that everything has changed, because from the place of loving yourself, you can love everybody else. There's more compassion, there's more peace, and there's more wholeness within. So you're not looking for somebody else to fulfill anything. And from that place, I guess when I moved, I had nothing. We had no one. I mean, we had my brothers here, but we didn't know anyone. So it's really easy to start afresh. It's really easy when, I mean, it isn't easy, but it's easy to start afresh and to create an entirely new life when you have a clean slate. And there was nothing or nobody, I didn't have to connect or talk to anybody who didn't fill my soul. And that changed everything, because then I got to stand in my power and choose what I wanted to put on my plate and what I wanted to fill my soul and what I didn't. And so nothing came into my life that didn't 100% live in complete alignment with my heart and my soul. And I always say, like, even when I started meeting girlfriends when I first got here, I was like, they had a one coffee. It was like going on dating, right? Like, I would have a couple with you. If you made it through the messaging, or you made it through the first initial 5-minute thing, maybe have a couple with you. And then if you made it past the cuppa, you were lucky, because most people didn't. Right? Because I was like, I don't need to coach you. I don't need to, I didn't want friends in my life who weren't going to be on a mutual level fulfilling my soul. And that's fine. Like, I can have acquaintances, I can be kind to other people, but the people who are going to be close to me, I didn't need to collect anymore, you know? And I think I will speak in Sydney, when I lived in Sydney. And this is how Angela and I met, in more networking meetings than I.
That's right.
Right? And so then because of that, we start to like attract all of these people, and all these people take so much time and energy. And I think at that point in time, it's like, in building the network, I didn't know. I think there's a line of like what fills me and what drains me. And listening to the line of what fills me and what drains me. And I think so often in life, people get stuck on I have to do it, I should do it because someone told me this is how I have to build my business, this is how I have to do this is how I'm supposed to show up and take care of my kids and take them to the whole school thing and be the class parent and whatever thing is pulling at you, right? Because you're supposed to, should, blah, blah, blah. And in Sydney, I was roped in it. And I remember before packing up and leaving, I was studying full-time, my leadership diploma, and my son was in kindergarten, and I started my business that year. It was like the world's craziest year. And I remember having to schedule in meditation. We did dance class that year.
Yes, we did. Belly dancing.
But like, I had to schedule every single spare downtime minute in, because if I didn't get it. And I think this is, and I say this because I think for me, it was one of the reasons that I couldn't have fallen in love with myself the way that I have since leaving. And even then, that was a huge part of my work in doing my leadership diploma, and the fact that I would say, if you ask me like how people can do this later, which is what you said, one of the things, in my leadership diploma, one of the most important things I learned was to look into the shadow, to look into the places that we don't want to look, that are the scariest as places. And, you know, no one wants to see it. No one wants to look at the darkness. No one wants to admit. And I remember listening to a Caroline Myss speak the other day when I was driving. And she said something along the lines of, you need to acknowledge the fact that in your darkness, you are capable of killing. You are capable of all of the worst things in the world, all of them. And when we can look at all of those places and all of those darknesses and go, yep, I am totally capable of that. I'm totally capable of being the abuser. I'm totally capable of being the person who hurt, like says unkind words and all of those things, right? We're all capable of it all. And when we can look at that and say, I know I'm capable of it, I can see how I've done that, and I can love that anyway, then you're free. You're free. And you start to look in and you start to go into the depths of who you are and go and find, okay, so where are these places and what have I done and how can I sit in them? And I remember my first time in my leadership class and seeing the patterns, right? The amount of times, like you know this stuff with all the emotional stuff that comes up, right? And we sit and like anger comes up. And so often people run from it and they want to, I'd like to shove it down my face with food. And how many ways, right?
That's right.
How many ways do you see it? I'd like to, Facebook, it's a great one. Or how many ways do we avoid?
Right? Distract ourselves
by
or even working on it, but still not resolving it. And this was part of the conversation we had before I hit the record button, is that we just keep working and working and working and so on these things sometimes, but it's not going anywhere because we're working on it.
Right.
Because we're trying to get a result. We think that we're going to get a result if we work on it. And I do that. I do the lifeline work. I do the journaling. But I'm waiting to, I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to direct the outcome. And I actually don't know the outcome. And the more you work on these things, I think you get very frustrated when you're not seeing the results that you're expecting. And results may be coming other ways.
Totally. And what I was going to say in regards to that is I think the thing that I started to learn in that diploma was the first time I could sit. I remember in the darkness, I had the world's, I'm going to admit it on public, I had the world's biggest explosion with my husband. I did things that were like, I won't repeat what I did, but I did some very unkind things. And then I told my girlfriends I did some very unkind things. And I was pissed because he didn't say he was sorry, but I was the one who was doing it, right? We're really good, right?
That's right.
And my girlfriends actually really called me on it. Like, Keri, oh my God. So I went and groveled. But the next month, when shit came up, as it does, and when all of the anger came up through me, as it does, he looked at me, and this was one of the most breakthrough moments of my life. He looked at me and he's like, "You're there." I'm like, just don't push buttons. And instead of, right, because there's two in every relationship, right? But because we both had awareness of it, and I said, as long as you don't purposefully push me over the edge, I will hold this. And I made the commitment to myself to hold it, because what often happens is, then at that point, and this is what you were talking about, is like, we will walk around it, we will skirt it, we will everything, but actually freaking feel it. And I sat there for days, and I will never forget it. I sat there for days, and it bubbled, and it curled, and it curdled in me. And I just, I did everything. I danced. I remember pulling I call it anger management, one of those balls on a rope, the weighted balls on the rope.
Yeah.
On walls to get it out. I wrote any way that I could. I just sat in it, any way that I could to move it. You breathe, whatever it is, and you sit with it, and you be with the anger, you be with the frustration, you be with whatever it is. And I think sometimes, the problem sometimes is even in naming it, right? I don't know what that all was, that energy was. I just know that there was a really uncomfortable energy inside of me that didn't need to be there anymore. And it didn't need to be unleashed at other people, because it wasn't them.
No.
It wasn't them. It was me looking at shit inside of me that I just didn't want to see, hear, or feel. And all this stuff that I'd been working on in class brought it up for me. And so when you can actually sit in that and love yourself in that, acknowledge yourself in that, not blame yourself, shame yourself, be pissed at yourself, whatever, have awareness of it, it shifted everything. And so that was the beginning for me of not pointing at everybody else all the time. Even though, and this is what we were talking about, even though you and I are both been in this game for 12 years, longer, however many years, right? And we do the work, but so often, even as there's always a deeper level to go to, always.
So tell me, because we're in the middle of all this stuff, how do you love yourself? Because we are so trained. We have got, from the time we're younger, we're trained to keep our emotions in. We can't let them out, and then we have, okay, I'll stop with the we. I have all these things going on my head. You shouldn't be doing this. You're doing this. You're not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And you're in the middle of this, and all this is bubbling up. Where do you find the love from? Because you're so trained in, this is the way you're supposed to behave. This is the way so everyone expects you to behave, and all of a sudden you're not behaving in that way. You've recognized that I'm about to break. How do you love yourself despite that? And that's probably the biggest question I've got for you. How did you love yourself despite that? Because it's not natural I know it's not natural for me, and I know it's probably not natural for many women.
I think first you make the decision. I'm thinking. First you make the decision that you want it differently. And I know what you were saying before we got on the call was that, so many of the women we're talking to, that's where they're at. Like, that you want something different, right? It's not working for you wherever you're at right now. Because there's a lot of like I said, we don't have to name what it is, but there's a lot of yucky stuff happening inside, internally. And it feels shit. And it feels dark and heavy. And it's not fun to sit in. And so you have to decide that you don't want it anymore, and be willing to let go of what you know, right? Because sometimes it's scarier to jump into a place that we don't know. Like into that emptiness, we don't know. I don't know. And one of the reasons I took that trip when we did it was simply because I got to the point where I teach manifestation. I said every single sign was pointing me in this direction. And everything was saying yes. And I talked to financial planners, and everybody was like, yep, you can do it. Yep, that's fine. Yep. And I was like, I have no excuses. I have to do this. And it was the first piece of the biggest step into surrender that I had ever done, of really not knowing what we would be coming back to, if we would be coming back, like you said, right? And it's in that space, it's the willingness to go into a place. It doesn't mean you have to go and travel overseas to have it. It was just that was what was guided for me. But it's willing to go into the place where you finally just say, I have no idea. I have no freaking idea. And then be willing to just sit and not try and make it happen. And for me, and I know for both of us, as women who are go-getters and who are like action takers and give it to me. You will do anything in the world. If someone told you, go do this and it will fix it, you're like, give it to me, right?
That's right.
Give it to me. I'm done, right? But the challenge then is to not do anything, right? The challenge is to say, I absolutely 100% trust that I will be looked after, and be in that spaciousness and be allowed to open your heart and be guided. And from that place and from the trust and from the knowing that everything is always perfect, right? Everything, even the moment where it hurts the most, that's perfect too. Then you'll go deeper into it. And from that place, it's like, it's like, I don't know, it just evaporates. It just evaporates, you know? And it doesn't mean, by God, it does not mean that the things in my head don't every so often go, Keri, you're not good enough. Keri, who the fuck are you? Keri, they still come, right? But what I find now is that they come and they go way faster.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, like they'll come in and and I'll be like, serious? Go away. You know, like, and it's like, I don't actually believe you. I know that you're there. I know that somebody conditioned you in there at some point in time, but I don't believe you, because I have spent so much time now saying what it is that I choose to believe and what it is that I choose to have. And I don't want anything else. And then from that place, living in complete alignment and saying yes. Because here's the other thing where people miss this. And it's that they say, I know what I'm supposed to do, and then they don't go do it. Or they do it some of the time. And I see this all the time, right? The easy stuff you're willing to do. The easy stuff, right? The path goes, Keri, go do this. And you're like, yeah, okay, I'll go do it. But when the path says to me, right before I did my camo trip, the path says, Keri, you need to go and tell everybody every day, even while you're going through this, that this is what's happening. And I was like, I never share stuff that personal as I'm going through it, right? Like when I go into really sacred ceremony for myself, it's myself. That's for me. That's personal. And when you first said, Keri, you have to, I went, serious? Really? Yes, Keri. Right? And in those moments, I could ignore it like many people do and say, no, I'm going to have this for myself because this is how I like to do it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Control.
Because that means that you're only halfway in. You're only halfway in, right? And in that place, it's not a true surrender. It's not a true surrender. And it's that true surrender, and in that place of true, deep surrender, that you can go, that there's just love. Because you know that there's always a path, you're always guided, and it's almost like there's nothing to worry about. It's kind of strange. And I say, I mean, it's a big difference from even 6 months ago, because the journey keeps going, right? But yeah, it's just keeping and challenging yourself to saying yes to everything that you're told, or no to everything that you're told, right? And I take it, and I know for me, and this goes with we've talked about weight, you mentioned, and it goes for me, and I still fudge this up, right? But I work really, I really am doing my dangdest to, when universe says don't eat that, okay, well, I won't eat that. Right? And then sometimes I'm like, I really want that. Can I have it? Yes, you can have it. Really? You're gonna let me have that thing now? Okay. Really? But I said I want. Yeah, well, that's okay. You can have it today. Okay.
See, some of us have got voices in our head. You've got voices all around you. But as you were speaking, I actually had a bit of an aha moment, and some people will know that watch these episodes and have been following you for a while, is that I have a lot of pain in my hip. And one of the things that, as you just said, is it's very hard. For me, it's very hard to accept pain. So I'm trying to find all these different solutions for it. But what you're really saying is, I need to actually accept it and sit in it, regardless of how painful it is. Now, for me, it's a physical pain, but there's obviously emotional stuff there as well, which I've been working on and looking for solutions. And I think for many of us, we're scared of pain, because when we were children, if something hurt, someone came and said, oh, you'll be okay, and gave us a hug. So we were never really allowed to experience pain, real pain. We've probably had superficial pain, you know, when we've broken up with a girlfriend or boyfriend, or even when we've broken, you know, people who've had marriages break up and things like that. There's been a pain, but we don't stay there long enough to really allow that pain to work its way through, because we suppress it. And whether or not we're suppressing it with medications, with alcohol, with drugs, whatever, or we just suppress it emotionally because it's easier, we don't want to deal with it. And it's because you said some people surrender, but they only surrender halfway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. You get to a stage, and I've been this many times. I go, I can't do this anymore, and I surrender. But I now realize I'm not surrendering all the way, because I'm still trying to find a solution outside for the pain. And even if it's me doing a lifeline session, that's me trying to find a solution. Really, I probably need to spend 2 or 3 days totally and utterly in the pain and allowing the pain to come up, which is very hard to live. I mean, it means I probably need to go in somewhere else away from the rest of the world to do that, because I'm mighty cranky when I'm in pain. But that was a big aha. It's like, because and I think many of us, and you know, women do this because we only go so far, you know, and we don't want to go deeper, because if we go deeper, it's going to hurt too much. We like to stay in control. We don't want to give up control, because we don't know what's going to happen when we get below that. And sometimes things will happen that maybe we think we don't want.
You know, it's interesting, because one of the things I'm doing right now, I'm taking this class at my spiritual center here. It's the spiritual center that's based on the principles of science and mind. It's fascinating. And it's so funny, because it's this introductory level class. And I remember going for this whole year, I've been like, I don't want to take it because it's introductory level and blah, blah, like ego, right? I just want to get into the higher level ones. But in order to get to the higher level ones, they're not stupid. You have to take the introductory level one, right? And it's not introductory at all. And it's really interesting, because I'm learning how to pray. And I'm like, really? I have to learn how to pray? But I have to learn how to pray. And one of the things that that I've really taken on board is that we're not in control of anything. And when you release control of the fact that you actually think that you control anything in your life, then all of a sudden what you're talking about becomes easy, because you're like, I actually, even if I think that I'm fixing it, you don't have a say in it.
Yeah.
Right? Even if I go and do all this, and this, right? It's like, even with like in health, we can all look after our bodies to the most amazing extent, and we could still walk across the street and get hit by a bus. We could still end up with a heart attack. We'll still all end up dead. Right? Like, I laughed about it. Someone recently I saw that was like this incredibly health, and not hysterical laughing, but like this really healthy person. It was like 60 years old, and you know, they're doing it all the time now. 50 years old, crashing, dying.
Yep.
And it's like, you can do it all, but you're still not freaking in control. Right? You're going to die when you're going to die.
That's right. And you're not enjoying life on the journey, because you're so focused on eating the right thing, doing the right thing. It's like, and you're beating yourself up all the time. If you do go and eat that chocolate cake, you're beating yourself up. And that's causing stress anyway.
Yep. Yeah. So for me, that's like, I think that's one of the most important things, is to realize that you're not in control. And it was funny, because I remember I had to turn my prayer in for it to be looked after. I have to turn another one in tomorrow to go right after this. And I mean, seriously, learning to pray, it's funny. But it was fascinating, because when I got my prayer back, I learned all of these things, like these already, like, you know, I'm pretty positive, and, you know, I get mindset work, but it was like a deeper level. And so one of the things was like, I was making some comment about, and I allow abundance to flow through me, or something like that. She goes, Keri, if you were to say you allow it, that means that you're actually in control of it. So get over yourself and realize that you don't have any control over it, and you can't allow it, because it has nothing to do with you. And I'm like, well, I've been putting my pace. And so I think it's another level of it, you know, like,
yeah,
when you look at it and say, I want to, and women, we want to control, and we want to be able to, you know, it's like the mama who thinks that they're going to be able to, I always laugh. I mean, even with two young boys, right? I always laughed at the women who'd be like, would be upset because their baby fell and the husband missed catching them, or like, how could you stand so far away from your kid? I'm like, if they're going to fall, as if you're going to catch that child. Like, what are the chances that you're actually going to catch your child in the middle of a fall? Pretty slim, and I've done it 1 or 2 times, but most of the time they fall and they have, you know, like
they're actually better off to fall without interference.
right? And it's like, you can't control it, even though like they want to, right? And they're obsessing over it. You know, I've lived enough months and years on a playground. They obsess over it.
Wait till they get to be teenagers and they say, "Oh, Mum, I'm going out and I'm coming back at 3 o'clock in the morning." Yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh my God, I can't even. I went back to when I was in Chicago. We were at where I grew up, and I was thinking about even then, like, and I'm sure maybe you did too, but like I used to walk to school, and I was like, and I'd ride my bike up to town, and I said to him, like, can you imagine letting Robbie, my older one, who's 9, ride his bike that far? No, alone, never.
No. I look at my kids now and I go, oh God, I hope they don't get up to the things that I did when I was there. I mean, I remember what I was doing when I was 16, and I'm going, my daughter's not allowed to do that.
No, right?
It's like, she's not that far off. I'm going, oh my God, what's going to happen if she does that?
Right? And I think the beautiful thing that we live in this day and age, like, you know, in the conscious world that we're living in, is the beauty to hold space and teach them how to navigate it. You know, and I think that ultimately, when I look at letting go of control, that the only thing I can control in my relationship with my kids is the fact that I can teach them and give them tools that will help them navigate all of the craziness that they will encounter, because they will. That's their path. And the only thing I can ever do is not to save them from themselves, not to make it so that they don't fall down, because they better fall down and then they better learn how to get back up. And my job is to teach them how to get back up.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's my job, not to teach them, to keep them from falling. Because they're not living life if you pretend not to fall.
No, that's right. And if they get told all the time that, let's fix you, let's fix it, it's my job to fix you up, I'll give you a pill to make it better, and all of that. I won't go into that, how I really think that this pill popping society leads to children
we could have
taking drugs. We won't go there. But okay, so we can't all up and leave our wives and travel to the other side of the world like you did. And even that, even though you started again, you didn't completely start again, because you were still in the same relationship. You still had the same husband. You still had children. So you didn't completely, there's still some shit you took with you. Lots of it, actually. even if you did start anew with the outside world, what would you say the first, 2 or 3 steps that someone could have, any of our watchers, viewers could have, to start to actually get into this place of acceptance, and that may not even be the right word, loving yourself and really embracing who you are, and not looking outside for the answers, and not just intellectually knowing, really, because you now deeply know. You intellectually knew, you learned all this stuff like I have. You knew it intellectually. It's how do you then start to know it on every cell of your body, know this stuff. So what are the first couple of steps that people could start, which will get them on this journey?
I think the first thing is being willing to take time with yourself. Most people, and this is what I was saying about Sydney, most people will, in my life there. And it's interesting because in my leadership diploma, I say that, take time with yourself. My leadership diploma was 6 days, was 3 days a week, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, for a full year. And that work was all personal, like deep soul work, deep. Plus then learning how to teach other people, how to lead it for other people. So in that, I was taking, even though it was a crazy year, I was taking relatively an obscene amount of time for myself. Because then you'd have to come home and do your homework, and there was, always stuff to do. And of course, not on the top of that was my own work, my own dance, my own meditation and exercise and all that stuff. And so I think the thing is, though, that, and this is what I hear the most of every single person who whinges, whines, and complains about the fact that they want what I have, but don't do the work. And the work is to take time for yourself and to really want to be with yourself. And because most of the time people go, I don't have time for it. I'm like, well, you don't make time for it. Because if you wanted it, you would make time for it. Mm-hmm. But it's too hard to look at yourself or to want to be with yourself, or you want to run from yourself. You don't want to sit with your mind. Because I know, and this is one of the most amazing things that happened for me. So Angela knows, I just went on a 10-day, 6-state journey driving by myself. I drove thousands of miles by myself, and in the middle did a shamanic ceremony and stuff. But one of the most amazing things that I found, and this was one of the best blessings, the second day on my last legs was coming back from California to Colorado. And one day of it was 13 hours and 20 minutes in the car. And that day, I've never driven more than like 5 hours. But that trip, I think the most I did was about 7 hours up to that point by myself in a car and driving myself. And I was petrified that day, petrified of like the entire thing, the driving and, you know, the physical part of it, that I'm going to be bored with myself. What am I, you know, all of it. And the most beautiful thing about that day was that all day long, my mind was telling me the most beautiful things. And I was having, like you said, a love affair with myself. I was driving through this incredible scenery, and it was like, I even remember driving in one point, and it like literally took my breath away, that I felt like I was driving into the heart, and like I could feel it beating around me in the womb, the colors, and it was so beautiful. And the whole day it was like this loving channel of like joy. And I was like, it was such an incredible place to be, because when you actually are willing to take the time to be with yourself, right? Like truly just sit with yourself, then you start to see yourself. And when you start to see yourself, you can love yourself for all of it, right? And then when you start to do that, like it's like the chatter just kind of starts to be nicer. And I catch myself in the negative stuff faster. And there's times when for sure, it goes like this and it loops around, right? But I don't stay there long, right? I catch myself in it, or thankfully, and this is the other thing I would say, find people, like, you know, like I know Angela has an amazing different ways of being supported if you work with her, but find people that will support you to not, right? Will catch you in it. Make sure that your circle of friends does not allow you to speak unkindly to yourself. And I have found some friends here that even in the most loving ways of myself, they'll still catch me out on things all the time, right? Because we're human. But I think it's one of the most important things is to start to listen to your mind and what we're saying to ourselves, and then reframe it. And I think one of the things that's really important with that, actually, if I were to look at another step, so first is to be willing to sit with yourself. And to the point where, I'm not kidding, 13 hours, I was like having a love affair with myself. I don't remember. I don't remember one unkind thought. Maybe there was 2 sentences that came through my mind that were not like the most kind thoughts, right? And the whole time I remember that this was so beautiful. And you can do it anywhere. You can take 2 days and do this anywhere, right? But what was so beautiful was literally to take 2 days. Like I had 10 days, but even if you took a couple and you don't have anywhere to, like, I had places to be, but I had no one to tell me where to be. I had no specific time to be anywhere. And I'm on the road and I was like, I have to, like, why did I ever wait 4 hours to pee? How many times have you done that, right? I'm like, oh my God, I'm busting. No. Like every hour and a half I was pulling off the road. I was like, I don't have to worry about that. Right? Really taking care of yourself, because how many times do we do these stupid things, right? And really going, my body's telling me to live that, like I was saying, to live that complete alignment, right? My body says get off the road and go pee. Okay, my body says get off the road and go stretch. Okay, and just listen completely and truly hear yourself.
I think that's important, because I think many people don't know how to listen to their bodies, and their body's speaking to them all the time. And I mean, and just that basic thing about being able to go to the toilet. How many women have issues with their pelvic floor, and they can't, they hold on, and then they get home and they rush and go to the toilet when they could have gone at any time during the daytime. But we've got this thing about going to the toilet in public, and don't ever do a bowel motion in public. That can only ever be done at home. And so if you go away for 2 or 3 days, you don't do one until you come home again.
I'm amazed that there's people who can do that, but yes, I know that they are.
And that's it, because we don't listen to our body, and that's where we start to eat foods that doesn't serve our body, because we're not listening to the way our body reacts when we have it. And I think that's a really important thing is, even if you just start to become aware of how your body is speaking to you when you do things, that, even if you haven't got, you can't sit there in silence yet with yourself, just start to listen, that when your body speaks to you, that you acknowledge it. You want to go to the toilet? Fine, go to the toilet. You want to eat? Eat. You don't want to eat. And that's another thing. How many people eat because it's time to eat? And I know that I was trained that everybody, you must have breakfast. Most important meal of the day. Now, I have to tell you, at the moment, I don't eat until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I feel better doing that than I did making myself have breakfast every single day. It was my training that told me that we have to have breakfast, most important meal of the day. Now I'm feeling so much better when I don't have breakfast. It's like I started to listen to what my body said. And maybe a few years ago I needed breakfast. I don't know. But now my body doesn't need it, so I don't eat it.
It's amazing.
I think it's important.
It's so amazing. It's so amazing that really deep listening on all of the levels, you know. And it's like, I know I used to get like what started a deeper level of my health journey, which you and I have talked to you about, is what ended up, I just forgot what I was going to say. Oh, it was because I just had Sam, and he was about a year old, and I was my second son, and he was about a year old, and I was like at that point where I want my body back, right? I wanted to sort out my hormones and all that stuff, and I was sleeping 2 hours a day. It was hardcore. I was so run down. And then I remember as I was getting better, and I wasn't sleeping 2 hours a day, but I was still sleeping a lot, that it was like napping was a bad thing.
Yeah.
Napping's a bad thing. I should have enough energy to get through the day all the time. Blah, 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 whatever. I don't know who the frick said napping's a bad thing.
No, it's a great thing.
And there are certain people who don't need to nap, but I am one of those people who naps. And now I'm at the point where I love, relish, and cherish my naps. And I don't nap every day, but when my body says nap, I don't even question it. I'm like, I could be sitting typing a letter and I'm like, shut it down, I'm going to sleep. Right? And sometimes it's a 20-minute nap, and sometimes it's an hour and a half. And I've learned that if I don't have to set an alarm to get up for something, I don't, and I let my body do what it has to do, because that's its healing. That's what I know that my body needs, because I put out a lot. And so then if I need the time for my body to rest, I know that rest comes from my sleep. And even if it's the middle of the day, I also know that I prefer to work late at night. Like, I get creative explosions at sometimes 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. And the body clock in the world who we live in the natural, health world, says that's the stupidest thing in the world. You need to be at 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm in bed at 9.
Right? And a lot of people are, right? 10 o'clock at night, be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, the whole body clock thing, and my husband gets mad at me for it. But I know that's my creative expression often will come coursing through me then. So I listen, and that sometimes means then that I want a 40-minute nap in the middle of the day the next day. But it's not because I didn't earn the right to, And so I think it's one of those things that, you listen all the time. Again, it's all the time. It's not. And we need to let go of the who said. And this was the other thing I was going to say. So we need to let go of the who said, right? So many of these mindset conditioning things happened because someone told us at some point in time. Someone told us at some point in time that this is how it had to be. Or 100 people told us at some point in time. Or one person when you were 1 year old told you that, and it stuck with you, and you don't even remember why or when or how, right? And so when we let go of, when we look at all of these thoughts that are programming us, and we say, where did that come from? Who said? I ask that question all the time. Like, when I tell myself like a non-negotiable that doesn't even make sense, right? Which we do all the time. And I go, who said that? Why? Why does that matter? And do I need to listen to it now? And oftentimes I can't remember who said it. Doesn't even matter.
That's right. And is it the truth?
Is it the truth? And do I want it to be my truth? No. Cool. Then I just choose again. And this is so important. I just choose right then and there that no, that doesn't have to be my truth. I choose this instead. And so now, instead of getting pissed at myself for napping, I love my naps. No one can take them away from me. And I'm not sick because of them. I don't need fixing because of them. Right? I don't have a problem because I have them, which is what I was doing before, beating myself up because blah, 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 right? And the other thing, what was I just? What did I say that started that?
I don't know. I can't remember. We were talking about listening to our bodies. That the first step of self-love is actually starting to listen to your body, and then being comfortable being within with yourself in silence.
Getting a support network. This was the other thing. Okay, getting support network, and who said. So asking yourself who said. But then the next level for me that took this a really big step deeper in this last year and a half that you've seen is looking at my family beliefs, very deeply looking at my family beliefs, which again has all come forward for me because my grandmother passed away. My grandmother was 100 years old. She would have been 102, like 2 months later, 101. She almost made it 101. And as her death was coming, and then after her death, and then me showing back up in the States really showed me like we had more time with family and all this stuff was really in my face, my family stuff. Now, a lot of people, if you haven't left your family, you wouldn't necessarily be so differently in your face, but like I left for 14 years. And so there's a lot of stuff that I wasn't living in the truth of in my family because I kind of walked away from a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And so then coming back and seeing it was like, that's the truth. And really looking at, so then if that's the truth, why? What was the mindset that brought that on? And asking, like I've been asking my mom, my aunts, my uncles, tons of questions. And as my grandmother died, like we had so much time listening to like the stories of her. And so it makes sense that's why I think this way, right? Like really deeply looking into how did your grandmother teach your mother? How did your grandfather teach your father? What was their belief? Right? So my grandfather would have said that women didn't he was very successful. So my grandmother was not allowed to work, but she was brilliant and did more philanthropic work and raised more money and more everything than most wouldn't even consider dreaming. Right? Brilliant woman. And so in my family, that passed down is you can work your butt off, but you don't have to get paid for it. But that's not a very helpful mindset.
when you're running a business, no.
Not when you're running a business, right? So finally I was like, no wonder. No freaking wonder it wasn't working for me, right? So all of these beliefs, like you can look at it and you can go, I mean, I've had that belief for however, I didn't know that. I didn't see that whole pattern. And it's living within us. And even though it brought so much success to my family, and even though it might work for your whatever it was or didn't work, right? Like the abusiveness and whatever. Because what I find is, and this is what I've been also finding really fascinating lately, is it doesn't matter what path we've come from. Like, I can say I came from a successful family, and I know somebody who I've been working with lately who comes from the complete polar opposite, who's got all sorts of, police bad stuff going on, right? From his past. But the fact is that we're both in the same exact place, breaking through the same stupid stories, just from a different
angle. Yeah.
Right? Different angle. And so it's instead of looking in, and this is what's really important, I think, with the mindset and why it's really important to work with somebody to do it, because we all have different things and different beliefs. The same thing, like they're not good enough, they're not worthy, they're not blah, blah, all those things will also up for all of us, right? But we've gotten there a different way. And when we can start to look and break down and go, how did I even bring this on? And do I choose it anymore? But like really deeply, like where did this even come from? And what are the family patterns that have been passed down for me that are so unconsciously ingrained in me that I don't even realize that I'm doing it? Then you can choose differently. And you can make a conscious choice to choose differently. Because I think that there's a lot of people out there who are doing affirmations, but they're not letting go of the thing that they're affirming. Right.
Yeah.
Right? So those affirmations, and I used to remember when I first learned hypnosis and hypnotic language and stuff and all the NLP things, I remember thinking, and we learned that they're like, affirmations are stupid, basically is what we learned in NLP, because if you can, or hypnosis, if you can hypnotically put them into your brain, it's better than affirmations. This is what they teach, right? But even then, I was always kind of like then I guess the affirmations aren't very good for you. But what I think it comes down to, because I use affirmations a lot now, but what it comes down to is that the affirmation is even more powerful when you've let go of the thing that has stopped you from having that actually be your truth.
Yeah.
Right? Which again means which we started with before, going into the shadow, looking into the darkness, and actually being willing to open up and looking in all the shadows in your closet, or all the skeletons in your closet. Right? Because most people don't want to go there. Most people don't want to actually open it up and don't want to have I've had some really, and you and I know my relationship with my mom has not always been pretty. Actually, it's been fucked up and shitty for a long time. And I was willing to go the places that said, hey, Mom, how did you learn this? Where did this come from? This isn't working for me. I'm admitting to her that there's certain things that aren't working for me, but what were you taught? Because whatever you were taught, then you taught me, and that's not helping me right now. So I need to undo it. Right? I need to go figure this out. And they've been really deep and powerful conversations. And so I guess that's another part of it, right? So we look at like sitting with ourselves and being able to look into and listen to our own bodies, having a network around you that will really support you to have the most incredible belief and call you on your chatter.
Yeah.
And then looking at your family for your, and in your own mind, however it is, for like the reasons why, like what's the underlying thing that's really stopping you from achieving, like what's that belief that's been held for so long. And that was really powerful, Keri.
That's a good start for everybody.
And be willing to have the conversations with the people, right? Be willing to have those deep conversations with people that's scary, right?
But sometimes those people are no longer here. So that's when writing to them and things like that and just releasing, because sometimes they're not here anymore. So, but we still need to energetically let that go, cut the cord on that.
Yes. You could write letters. You could also talk to people who are like psychically channels.
Yep.
I know. I've definitely had people who've helped me with that over the years. And I'm sure there's probably some people who are on here that would believe that they can speak to the other side themselves too.
Yeah.
Like I know personally for me, in many ways I feel more connected with my grandmother now than I did the last few years of her being on the planet. So if there are people, and sometimes, and this is that trust, right? We're not in control. And it's that surrender. Like, what if you did hear? What if you could? What if, and it's that question, right? What if I could actually hear my grandmother speaking to me? What if I could actually listen to my body? What if I could, instead of saying, there's no freaking way. You're full of rubbish, Keri. And hearing me saying this, even still, right? There's probably people who are hearing me going, she's on some other planet, that's not for me. Right? Shutting it down before you even allow yourself to be open to it. And I think that's the thing that's so powerful in the whole journey, is being open to, and again, it's that coming back to just saying yes. It doesn't have to make sense. And oftentimes when you walk the path of alignment and and I say that because I think the path of alignment is the path to loving yourself, because you're honoring yourself in actually walking that path of alignment. And in order to walk there, you have to just be able to go, what if this did work? I don't know, it sounds a little bit crazy. And we end up in these really crazy scenarios sometimes, like doing things that I go, how did I get here? How did I decide for 4 months to travel around the world with my family? Sammy was 3 at the time and Robbie was 7 when we left. I mean, and then we ended up doing a full overseas world, move without having planned it. Like, how do I get here? Why am I here? Right? Like, it doesn't make any logical sense. We did it without jobs, without no one was paying for us to move. And I'm like, really? Okay. Right? And we don't always understand. But then, and even when I moved here, when I moved to Australia, the first time I moved to Australia, I knew, like looking back, I knew it's because I had to walk away from my family to find myself. And one of the reasons, and find my husband and all the other wonderful things that Australia brought me. But when we moved here, I knew for Hugh, it was one of those, my husband, I knew it was for him, another one of those things, like, you know what, you get to go reinvent yourself. Like, you get to have a place where no one knows you, and you can go create whatever you want. And I made a commitment to him, actually, that I said, my commitment to you is the only person that's going to hold you back from finding yourself, like the way that I got to find myself when I left Australia. I mean, when I left the States to go to Australia, is me. I'm the only one. And I said, and I make a commitment to you right here and right now that I will wake up every day and see with new eyes. And if you want to shift and change, I will give you the space to do so, because I was the only one. Right. And so when I came here, I thought part of the reason was for him. And then of course I realized how much of it was for me. Right. Yeah. How much of it was for me to do the healing, and how much of it was for me to do the integration of my two worlds that did not ever meet. And we don't know, but you have to be willing to do the crazy, and that can mean be willing to have those crazy conversations. And oftentimes, we write these letters. I've done it for years. I've written the letters and never sent them, even to the ones that are alive. Right. And this year I have even challenged myself, knowing like the world came through and I was like, I'm supposed to write a letter. I'm supposed to send this one. And I have written some letters that I've written and I've gone, I don't know why I'm sending this. Right? The ones that you think you're going to really just hold on to and never really send. And I've been sending them. And it's amazing what happens, right? And these conversations open. What happens? What would happen if I truly, truly spoke my truth? You know, and I think, again, this whole alignment, self-love, it's that standing 100% committed, not halfway, right? Not only doing it when it's easy, not only writing the letter and holding it for myself, but when I'm told, write the letter and send it. No matter if they'll write me back, right? I've written letters and I've said, it was healing for me, and I had to write some of them to, you know, pass to people. And one of them, I was like, I don't know that you'll write me back. Maybe you will. She never did. And I was like, I don't expect it. I would love to hear from you, but she never did. And that's part of it. But now for me, the whole healing happened, whether she wrote back or not.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a really hard letter to send. And sometimes that's it, right? But we know, like, that's the whole thing, is you stand in your truth and you own it. And you do it no matter whether it feels comfortable or uncomfortable, you know? And this is where people don't fully commit. Because when it feels uncomfortable and it's scary as all...
Yeah, we step back.
We step back.
Yeah.
And it's in those moments where everything has the ability to just... Like, I think of it almost like a you know, those locks. Can you remember those, you know, like those locks that you see in movies?
Yeah, combination, yeah. Well, we could talk all day, but we won't, because it is nighttime for you. And but I really want to thank you for sharing what you've shared today. And I know that people who are watching this will get even if they get one thing out of it, it's going to change them, because, you know, you've just shared so much magic today and been so open with your knowledge and also your journey. So I want to thank you so much for being part of Maga Woman TV. And for those of you who are watching this video, Keri has also written an article for us, which will be in issue 5 of the magazine, so the one that's releasing at the end of May. And she'll be sharing more in that article as well. And I'll put all the links to, if you want to learn more about what Keri does, to follow Keri on social media, all of that, it'll all be in the magazine and underneath this video. So, because as I said, I've watched Keri over the last couple of years since she's gone over to the States, and I'm absolutely amazed at the change that has happened in her. I sit there and I watch her and I want what she's got, because she's just got, you know, just the way she looks, she's just always beaming. And I know there's days and she's probably not so much beaming, but she always looks healthy. She always looks happy. And, you know, she's out on social media and she's putting herself out there every single day. So whether or not she's writing or she's videoing, she's out there all the time. So, Keri, thank you so much for your time. I have loved talking to you. And
thank you. And I want to say thank you to you for all of your fantastic work as well.
Thank you.
And all the work you've done over the years, and you supporting all the beautiful women that you're supporting right now. You are an incredible, incredible woman. And I also admire and love you.
Thank you so much. So from my heart to yours, infinite love and gratitude. Bye for now.